The customer focused mentality. I've always thought of it as your rent is typically your largest cost per month. I want our service to be reflective of that. I think people ignore or underestimate how much right people, right seat is critical. I think that when you're considering future growth, you have to think about your people in those seats and can they scale in the future in those seats in the way that you want to. How do we encourage, having people who are in those roles, and it's really celebrating. It's not just about doctors, lawyers. I mean, we should be celebrating our plumbers. We should be celebrating our electricians. These are things that
And here we are live again. Welcome everyone to the show. This is another great episode of Multifamily Hangout. Amazing guest today. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. I'm turning it away to my co-host, Chris Moreno. Take it away, sir.
So good to see everyone. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Today we have an awesome guest. We have Stephanie Gubiotti joining us. Stephanie has incredible experience in the industry, having spanned multiple companies and touches all areas from people management to recruiting to management, operations, and even development. So I'm really excited to dive in because every time, Stephanie, we sync up and I see you, you are always excited about something new. You're very candid and open about what you're vulnerable about and what you need help with. But I love also where you dive into your vision. So I'd love to kind of start off too. We're going to dive into a few topics today, but I think one of the coolest things would be for you to share a little bit about your start to the multifamily industry and how you've kind of gone from how you got into the industry to where you are today. So that's what I'd love to really hear your take on.
Yeah, great. So one of the reasons that I love multifamily is the ability for people to come in and grow in the industry. I was able to do that myself. I started my career as a leasing associate working with Elford Development, worked there for several years, went over to Dietz Property Group, and was there for 11 years. And I was heavy in operations, and prop tech really started to become more prevalent in around 2014, 2015 is when I really started to see things shifting. At that point, I really shifted my career focus into, while having oversight of operations, doing a lot within the technology space as well. And I realized how much value I found in that and how much it connects to operations. So after that, left Dietz Property Group, went over to JVM Realty out of Chicago, left JVM last year, went over to New Urban Residential, where I am currently serving as president.
It's awesome. And one of the other things I think that is really cool to hear is, I think you have a very clear mindset of what your vision and your goals are. So could you maybe share a little of your vision for this year, maybe some vision also for New Urban and some of your plans? Like what are the things you share with your team of what you expect and where you're going to be in the next, whether it's 6 months, year, 3 years?
Yeah. So we currently own around 5,000 units in multiple markets across the Midwest and Southeast. Our eventual goal is to get to 15,000 units. When you include our affiliated lending business, we have around 3 billion AUM. Our residential division is what I'm focused on, and that is where we're going to continue to grow in new markets. We want to stay Midwest, Southeast, but definitely strong growth goals. Actually got back from looking at one of our new deals yesterday. So very exciting.
In terms of development is not easy and, trying to do many things. But what's great is you have a lot of unique skill sets within your team and within your organization. How do you think about development? Maybe can you share a little bit about what makes you unique from a standpoint of, are you taking, sites from greenfield, is it brownfield? And then how do you think about that process? Are you partnering with others and doing JVM? What is that development focus?
Yeah. So I would say the development side of it is not our current focus of doing, new construction build out at this time. Right now, we're focused on existing assets, acquisition of those assets, and then doing long-term holds in those. We are owner operators only. We don't do third party, and we are vertically integrated.
Big picture, I think right now, we've talked about prop tech, and there's so many elements of it, from the underwriting of assets, right? If you're buying, if you're even thinking about managing. Number two, if you're thinking about lease up and
Mhm.
marketing those properties. To number three is ongoing operations, to eventual disposition and or refinancing,
Mhm.
improvement of the property, maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the road. So what are some of the areas that you focus most on right now? Is there a particular area? Are you focusing on all of them? And is there an area you're most excited about?
I love process. And so I am the most excited. We use EOS. And so I love EOS, and that has really helped us to focus in on our process. So really all of the things is what we're focused on, because we're developing really our core at the moment to make sure that we have our property management systems in ideal state, that we have exactly how we want to rinse and repeat, if you will. I used to work with Courtney Bayless. I think that was a Courtney-ism, but definitely like a rinse and repeat of what we're doing. So we have that really strong foundation to build off of as we continue to grow and scale. So we're
Great.
focused on things from, we just moved over our screening platform. We're on 100 for screening. We just were on calls. My team is currently on with the Yardi team, who has been an immense support to our teams through this process, to make sure that we're able to really grow and scale the way that we're anticipating that we need to.
Stephanie, when it comes to technology, I'd like to learn about your vision about how do you approach technology in your tech stack for your company, because I know it's it could be a challenge at times. With I used to say this, we at times tend to punish people with technology while trying to help them and trying to provide them with all the tools that they need. They actually end up drowning in technology, and it makes it extremely difficult. I heard cases to when leasing agents had to be proficient in like 60 different pieces of technology of software,
Yes.
which is a little too much for an entry level position. So I'd love to get your take on your current tech stack, how you're looking at technology in general.
For me specifically, focusing on best in class is really what I'm focused on. Like, what is the best selection for our business, and what is best in market. I really like to stay in the loop of who's available in the market, what's coming in that maybe people don't know about just yet, who's building a new product, really focusing on making sure that the employee and the resident experience remains the focus. I really believe in servant-based leadership. We develop at New Urban a culture of care, and we operate our communities with the care of a long-term owner. And that's really our mission, and we are focused to that. And we want to make sure that our residents have that same experience as they're interacting with us in our communities, and that those technology touch points don't become overwhelming to the resident. Equally on the employee side of it too, because the employees have to not only be experts in the employee side of it and knowing how they navigate it, they also have to be experts in how to work with customers, because they have to help customers through that technology. So really try to think about those types of things when we're looking at our technology stack. We are focused to make sure that we build out all of our different workflows in a way that supports our continued growth, and that we're being mindful of how those things are developed. So we're going slow to go fast to make sure that things are set up the right way, because if those tech and implementations aren't done well, it can just become so chaotic, and it's very difficult to try to then back up and figure out what went wrong. So for us, we're starting at the very basics, layering in things, testing. Okay, is this working? Great. Now we're going to layer in the next thing. Everybody good? Now we're going to keep going. And so that's really the iterations that we're focusing on. I think that there's always going to be some colleagues who are more comfortable with change, and then others who are not. I recognize that I tend to be very comfortable with change. However, I know that not everybody is. And so for us, it's making sure to think through that change management too, of what's the world that they're used to? How do I think like this employee? I've been a property manager before. put that hat on and how do I think through what my questions or issues would be? And then I try to resolve those in advance with my team. So we really try to hash through these issues in advance and work through all of the workflows together.
One of the other things you hit on, and I think Adrian is also very process driven as well. We love it. And EOS, which is great, is it really ensures that you focus your time. Because I think one of the things, Stephanie, is you are very clear oftentimes when you're like, okay, I've got this much time, I could do this and I could do this, but we can't you can't boil the ocean right now. So I think EOS allows you to do that, is be very focused. Your meetings are very concise and you're covering exact types with exact action points, which I love. Is there anything, has your team really embraced EOS, or have you seen any pushback on implementing a system like that throughout the organization?
Yeah, so funny enough, before I joined New Urban, the executive leadership team was using EOS. They had been using it for a while. I came into the team having the EOS experience and I contributed to helping them elevate where they were within the EOS platform. We've moved over to 9DIO as the tool that we're using to leverage our organization at this time for how we have our EOS tools organized and we're working to roll out more of EOS. We want to make sure that we are keeping our values always as our, guiding principle. That's the one thing that I think is the most impactful to me about EOS is, the ability to really keep those values as your main priority and your focus. I also think that having clear action items with to-dos, follow-ups, and then those quarterly conversations are really critical. We just haven't branched that out to all of the layers of the organization. So it's going to continue to evolve as we get more EOS experts on the team, as our team continues to use EOS in a consistent way.
A shout out to all of you that are watching us today. Drop a line in the comments, let us know where you're watching us from. And also, if you have questions for Stephanie, please drop them in the comments. Chris and I will keep an eye on them, and we'll ask Stephanie on your behalf. Now,
Great.
Stephanie, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
I'd like to get a little bit of your approach to AI in general, and how does that apply within your company? How do you look at, implementing AI, and how do you approach AI? I'm asking this because a lot of companies, I think, notice that their employees are using, for example, ChatGPT, and using, like, putting company-related information into ChatGPT, trying to get answers, and once it's out there, you can, like, it's in a public domain, and it could be a very sticky issue, and it's kind of, even if you block it on their computers, they could do it from their phone, copy and paste. So it's a sticky situation. So I like your approach on, like, the safety, part of AI, like, how do you protect data? And then also, like, how do you embrace? Because, I mean, it's a driver like we never seen before, this artificial intelligence. I personally love using it, and, I use it at scale. So I like your take on those.
I am really comfortable with AI because I've played with it and have, gotten comfortable with it. I think it's all about great prompts and knowing how to come up with those prompts to get the output that you're looking for. So that's one piece of it. From the employee side of it, our standard practice and policy is, like, you can't copy and paste business things and put it into Chat GPT. There's policies and procedures in place for that. It's very important in the world of AI that people keep it controlled and understand safety and what it is that they're doing. It's very easy to think, like, oh, I'm just putting this, it doesn't matter, into this platform, but, like, actually it does. And having employees understand that they can't just do those things is really important. And then also, equally on the other side, having tech that is available to teams, that is safe for them to use, that's allowable within the organization, really important. For us, I really like the concept of HIO. They have an AI ethicist on their team, and specifically it uses your policies, procedures, and it's basically like an internal agent that uses your items as its source of truth. That to me is, great all day long, things like that, where it can serve information up to help people be very efficient in their roles. Excellent. If we want to help people to draft their emails or communicate things better, excellent. But when it comes to proprietary data, copying and pasting, no go.
People talk a lot about different NOIs or KPIs, I should say, but as NOI being one of the key ones, but also thinking about turns, thinking about lease up metrics, what are the top metrics that you're thinking about this year? Are there any unique ones that maybe weren't on the top of your list years back in your career that you're more focused on, or you're having your team focus on even more, whether it's the customer experience? How would you track that? How are you thinking about that as an organization?
Yeah. I think, having resident reviews and those online reputation scores are really critical. That wasn't around a few years ago, wasn't a focus a few years ago. Equally, from that same perspective, though, the employee satisfaction scores, paying attention to those types of things and seeing, are my residents happy? Are my employees happy? Ultimately, my perspective is that if you have those two things happening, you're going to have positive NOI and you're going to have strong revenue growth. I also think lease trade out is something that, making sure that people understand it or at least know how to explain it if there's different lease term and data definitions. I also think system conversions and those choices in systems conversions, that has become much more prevalent in the last few years too, of how impactful those settings can be and how critical it is for groups to operate kind of in a hive mentality, because if you operate separately, you miss key critical information that needs to be shared by the rest of the group. So that has been a big takeaway from us, is we really try to operate within groups and clusters.
You talked about, obviously the residents, thinking about them coming into the property, and whether that's, thinking about documentation, there's some fraud. So how do you screen for that? But also, improving their credit scores while they're living with you in your properties and making sure you're rewarding them. How do you think about, the, whether it's rewards, how do you think about, in the reward side of the business from security deposits, how are you thinking about also like crime and security? To another topic this week at MHC, which was when Adrian and I were there, they were talking about having friends and the mental well-being of people when they're living in these communities, because they're spending so much of their life there. And are you connecting the dots on friendships, or relationships in your building? So I'd love to hear on that topic.
Yeah. A lot of people meet their neighbors, obviously, and they build relationships and connections. And the relationships and connections people have are very valuable. And where people choose to call home is important. And having the ability to say, I live with friends in my community, that's great. I think that it is incredibly impactful to continue to develop out social events and communities to really encourage that feeling of home and really develop the customer focused mentality. I've always thought of it as your rent is typically your largest cost per month. I want our service to be reflective of that. We, of course, are running our communities and we have bills to pay and all of these things, but it's very important that no matter what, we give that customer our time, attention, and focus because they've chosen to call our community home.
We have a question from the audience, and I want to salute Jen and say Jen was great meeting in Chicago just yesterday and the day before. With your new team, are there any special or new insights on what is driving employee engagement or dissatisfaction?
Let's see. Yes. So great question, Jen. And I'm glad that you guys met Jen. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend NMHC, but glad that it was a great time. I think that there are a lot of things that I continue to focus on in improving our employee satisfaction. I think that what is driving employee engagement for us as a team is how much we are listening to them and taking their feedback. We've implemented level 10s through all levels of the organization at this point, which has really helped us to stay organized and connected. But I think that I wouldn't say that there's any one particular thing other than it continues to be our main focus as a leadership team. When we wake up every day, it's like our teams are the priority and they are the focus. And I hope that the people on our teams really know and feel that.
I think one of the biggest things that's going on right now is that people are talking a lot about culture, and you've got AI everywhere. People saying, "Oh, you've got to work faster. You either can work from home or you got to come into the office." They're hearing mixed messages across the board. Utilize AI, but wait a second, don't, because all of our information is, as you mentioned, could be going down the wrong rabbit holes, could be spitting out the wrong type of information. So how do you think about, does AI make it more important to have stronger relationships, stronger bonds, and meet even more in person? Whether that means flying out to your properties, having more.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those in-person interactions are so critical to continue to develop that. Actually, this week, our leadership and management team got together. We did a team fun event. We went to an escape room, and it was like a kids playground room, and we went in there and we had to try to escape out of it. It was so fun. But those interactions, like, you can't put a price tag on that, because you get to interact with your team. You get to see your colleagues and understand them in a different way. And I think that having those connections and really having, again, that culture of care be our focus and that priority. We care about our people and we want to invest in them, and that includes our time. So getting out to our communities, we are focused on a rotating schedule of different members of our leadership team visiting our communities as well. So they're not just seeing Stephanie, for example. We've got an operations coordinator who's visiting our sites. We've got our director of corporate administration. We have our asset management team, really focusing on also getting out those touch points. We all visit our communities and our teams to the point that we want them to have that personal connection. We had a new controller join our team at New Urban. His name is Amar Singh. He's been a phenomenal addition to our team. He has joined us and really helped us to get our accounting side of the business to that next level too. So he actually went and visited our communities this week with us and made sure that we were all building those personal connections, because it does matter, and it helps the teams to feel comfortable with who they're interacting with on a day in and day out basis.
Awesome. And welcome, Amar. Glad to have you on board. And if you're in the
I think
audience,
he's on some business calls, but we're hopefully he'll listen in later. And yes, we're thrilled to have him on the team.
well, I think one of the things too is that, you're not only a leader in your organization, you're running a business, with incredible amount of employees and residents that affect people's lives, but also investors, and you're managing billions of dollars of assets. But you take it a step further, and you're out speaking at events. You're leading in on advocacy, and whether it's going to Washington, D.C. or going to tech conferences, you're on the steering committee for RETC, which is incredible, and NMHC. So I'd love to hear, how do you balance all this? What's your secret to success of being able to balance your time and being an effective leader?
Yes. I've had to learn to say no a lot more than I thought that I would need to. And sometimes that means saying no to responding to all of the outreach that I get. It's not personal if I don't respond to somebody. It's just, I simply can't keep up. Same thing with the travel schedule. I mean, I was supposed to go to NMHC. It was like, hey, looking at our current workload and what we've got going on, I'm gonna say no to this one. So I really took the month of May and said, okay, this is gonna be New Urban travel only, and that's my focus really for the last 60-ish days. June will pick back up again with conference travel schedule and things like that. So I try to really plan ahead and think through operationally, what do we have going on in the business? If I'm out, who can cover that? Who's going to be, handling this specific thing? Because equally, I do think it's very important as we grow and scale, we want employees who want to come and work for us. So we want people who are listening to this go like, hey, New Urban sounds like an excellent company to work for. I would love to, work for them. We want to develop that. We want people who want to join our team and believe in the vision that we're building together in making multifamily a really exciting place to be. A lot of people choose to rent, and it's a choice. So I think that it's really important for us to continue to develop this area.
It's almost unbelievable, but we're approaching the half of 2025, right? It's time flies when you have fun. So I wanted to ask you now, from an operational standpoint, what do you see as being the top opportunity for your group on operations, and then the top challenge that you guys are facing in 2025 and maybe next year as well?
I think our greatest opportunity is our people. We have a fantastic group of amazing talent at New Urban Residential. And one of the things that I love doing as a leader is helping people grow from within. And I'm so encouraged by all of our amazing colleagues. And I've been very fortunate to join a team with highly talented people in place. We have some of the strongest property managers I've ever worked with. Very excited about our continued growth. I think our biggest roadblock right now is just competing priorities. We have to choose based off of our staff sizing right now, where we're going to focus, where's the priorities, what's highest and best use for our time, and then let's focus there. I think that EOS has really helped me specifically as a leader to be able to dive into that thought process, because when it gets, you go to IDS and you're like, what's most important? All right, focus there, focus there, focus there. And I had the benefit of, during my time at Dietz, we were very EOS pure. We used EOS before EOS was popular. It was something that was really very early in my career, that concept of prioritizing, reprioritizing constantly was taught to me from a very early age.
Are there any other real big, tips or tricks? Maybe it's, is there anyone you follow or listen to, like podcasting wise, like Simon Sinek or Diaries of a CEO, or any books you really enjoy, or that you ask your employees maybe to read when they come on board of the team?
So I have a friend, Sheena Pabari. Shout out Sheena if you are listening. She told me about Mel Robbins' book, and it is, oh goodness.
Is that the Let Them idea,
Yes,
or is
Let
that
Them.
different?
Yes,
Let
yes,
Them.
yes. So a few years ago at an Entrada conference, Mel Robbins came in and spoke. She was phenomenal live, just absolutely phenomenal. When this book came out, Sheena had mentioned it in a group we were in together. I love audiobooks, especially when I'm traveling and being able to have those on the plane. So I did the audiobook of that. And, just when things go sideways, I was like, let them. And, you have to really embrace that I can only do so much, and I can only control what I can control. And I have to focus on what it is that I can control, and realize if this is outside my sphere of influence, like I can't care about it. I can think about it, I can consider it, but I can't change the outcome. And I need to not let those outside influences really pull that focus. And I think that book, and especially doing the audiobook of it, really beneficial. We've got a ton of fantastic people in the multifamily space that I really enjoy following. I would say from a future perspective, a lot of the things that I'm focused on are those smaller groups and those get-togethers where those key decisions are made, like the RETC steering committee. Being able to get that group of thought leaders together and really having those key conversations and discussions about ways that we can improve the industry together. That's where I see as like our future of the industry growing, and where we'll continue to develop out as an industry.
Stephanie, I want to talk about scaling a business. And I have a particular question. What do you think is the number one, the top situation that most people ignore when they're trying to scale, when they're trying to grow a property management business? Either ignore or underestimate.
I think people ignore or underestimate how much right people, right seat is critical. I think that it's really important. For those of you listening who don't know EOS, there's this concept of right people who are in the right seat, RPRS. When you're considering future growth, you have to think about your people in those seats and can they scale in the future in those seats in the way that you want to. A lot of people hold up making people decisions, and ultimately it's a tough part of the industry, but being able to make those people decisions and knowing whose strengths are where and getting people in the seat that is aligned with their strengths. How do we get people working in their flow state? If somebody's really good at administrative work and that's what they love doing, we want them to focus there. And we want to think about what people are really good at so we can get them to right person, right seat. We have these amazing people on the team, right? But we want to make sure that we move them into the right role so that they're able to work at their highest and best use for our organization and for their development and happiness in what they're doing day in and day out. We want people who are happy in what they're doing, because again, happy employees, when you smile and you pick up that phone, that translates to your residents, and how they feel about coming home every day.
What's your best advice for people when they are thinking about that career journey and finding the right person, right person, right position? Is it finding your passion? Is it finding what you're really good at? Is it testing yourself and challenging yourself to go down rabbit holes to see if you like it? Is it going and working with other people on the team or in the industry to see what they do? What's your best advice for someone looking to find that right place?
I think that it comes down to finding the right leadership. I think if people align with the right leadership, I've had the benefit of having some of the most amazing leaders in my career who have really helped me to grow and to develop to where I am today. And that's really, where we're focused is how do we help people grow and to develop into these future roles? I want to help people who are currently leasing associates. Some people want to be leasing associates and they want to stay leasing associates. And I think that that is amazing. And we need people who are leasing associates. It's a fantastic position. We have other people who want to grow into being assistant community managers or community managers, regional managers. And so really working with them to say, okay, this is where you want to go to. How do you reverse engineer where you are today, like from there, and how do we get you there? What training tools, resources do we need to align with you to get you what you need? And I think it really comes down to employees taking the time to be certain about the leadership that they're joining, because the company that the leaders make or break the team. And, having worked for some great leaders, it really does improve your experience.
When it comes to investors, Stephanie,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say is the top concern of your company investors? What keeps them up at night, and how do you strategize to overcome that, I guess, concern of theirs in 2025?
Sure. So our focus is ultra high net worth individuals as investors. We don't do institutional investments. However, I would say what our investors are focused on is making sure that we've got strong operations, making sure that the asset value continues to rise. Our investors are focused equally on employee performance. Our investors believe in the vision for New Urban and, again, creating that culture and community of care. So those are the type of investors that we bring in as well. We are really focused on getting assets into the portfolio that are, I would say 2000s and newer vintage, maybe 2010s and newer. Again, Chris, you've met Zach on my team. Zach he's our head of investments. And so he is the one who leads that charge from the acquisition standpoint and the investment management. So he stays busy.
That's awesome. And I think there's always, as I witnessed this week, people who've been in the industry and having actually meeting up today with someone who's been in the industry over 40 years and incredible. They've been at the forefront of so much technology and they are just so involved in innovation. They're so involved in new ways of thinking around construction, architecture, redevelopment and redeployment of assets, especially multifamily, but also hospitality. So I'm curious, like what your, if it's your, what do they call it? The big hairy, the BHAG. Some people call it
Oh, yeah.
big hairy audacious goal. Do you have a different term for it on your teams?
Oh,
The
gosh.
big goals, or how you think about rocks, even if it's a rock or a goal.
Yeah. We actually just set our rocks a few weeks ago at this point, a month ago. So yeah, I mean, we we have a lot of those. We try to focus on highest, what's the highest and best use of our time? Where's that value going to be? And how does that align with our company vision? So we use our vision traction organizer. That's our source of truth. We really focus on that vision, and are the decisions that we're making always in alignment with that continued vision?
Training. I want to stay on training a little bit and ask you, how do you see the future of training your employees in the advent of AI? Because AI seems to have answers and very solid answers for a lot of the questions, right? Including questions related to how should I do my job, whether I'm a maintenance person or a leasing agent or a property manager or regional manager. There's answers, that artificial intelligence provides them within seconds. How do you think of the future of training, seeing the big picture and what's coming up in a pipeline as far as like artificial intelligence, like having lots of answers already?
Yeah, this is why I love Hio, because and why I really felt like Hio was something different. When I first met with Jen and was understanding what this product was. From my perspective, there's a gap in process and then teams being able to effectively execute. What I see is that having things that are process based, having those process prompts that are custom for your organization and how you want your employees to function is going to be really critical. And then have employees where they can actually text and ask a question and get the response back for what it is that they're looking for based off your policies and procedures. I'll also say that I like that there's the ability to layer in with your SharePoint and your Zendesk, and being able to, like, if there's a ticket, there's an ask, it can prompt an answer with that policy and procedure. And then you're training Hio to really develop that further. So we're still developing names for what our new urban agent will be. So we try to stick with the NU from our marketing perspective. So we'll have to come up with some cute names for that. But that's our focus, is really making sure that our process is our source of truth and that we're using AI to leverage that source of truth in the most effective way.
We can put the call to action out to our audience for, that's what LinkedIn is great for, getting them to come up with names or unique,
Yes.
creative ways. So people like Mike Wolber and some others, Tony Souza, a lot of our friends have done that. Adrian's great at that too. And I appreciate you taking this time out with us, Stephanie. We're going to ask a few more questions here, and we're going to dive in and see if the audience has some questions. I know. But I think one of the coolest things is that, again, you mentioned a few people earlier. You mentioned some things, and I love the specificity. I love when people dive in and can actually share those exact points in their life that made an impact on them. Whether it was making a decision on a new career, an impact a trip had, right, on maybe taking a breath of fresh air. You've shared some great family moments on LinkedIn, right, with your daughter as well. So I'd love to maybe hear, anything you'd like to share around. Maybe is there someone who's made a big impact on you, whether it's personal life, work,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
number two, if you want to share maybe some things about, personal life, are you going to have your daughter come into the business? Do you recommend she gets into it, or is she going to go into? She's like, heck no, I'm not following in your footsteps.
So she is currently a senior in high school. She's committed to go to Ohio State's business program this fall. So super excited for her. She is going to be majoring in operations management. So who knows? She could end up going into multifamily. I think that I'd advocate for anybody to join, but I want her to really develop what she thinks is right for her personal journey. I'm here to support that, but she's definitely been along the way watching mom. I was actually chatting with Seth, our CEO, this past week about how when my daughter was little, she would visit us in the leasing office, and like having those stories when she would get off the school bus, pop into the leasing office, and then go to a babysitter who lived in our community. Like those things really, they carry with our kids. So many of us have kids who felt like they really grew up in the industry. And, I'll say I went through a personal grief journey a few years ago, really 2021. And I think that shifted me a lot. My husband had cancer twice. After losing my mom, I lost my dad and then my only sibling 5 months later. And so having those like major shifts all at the same time during COVID was a lot. And so I think that time period changed me as a leader, because when you go through those moments of grief and those moments of really true reflection, it changes you as a person and it helps you relate to people differently. And so when our colleagues go through things, I think that I'm able to relate to them differently and perhaps understand things from a different perspective.
My background has been in maintenance, so
Yes.
maintenance is an area that I'm deeply passionate about. And I think maintenance is a immense opportunity for us as an industry, for each company individually, into improving operations, turning more profits. Whenever we're looking at maintenance, not as just an expense, but maybe a center of profit. Uh,
Mhm.
I'd like for you to share what's your strategy in regards to maintenance, and are there any amazing things works with your current company in regards to maintenance and initiatives?
Yes. Again, I'm going to brag on my team. I've got some amazing facilities team members. They're really great. I think it all starts with our people. We've got a strong facilities team. We actually invest heavily in that area. We really want to make sure that the residents have the support that they need in order for them to feel comfortable in their homes. So making sure we have staffing levels in order to have service requests done. We actually have we have a director of facilities and then a senior director of special projects that really helps oversee that entire area of business in totality, which from our perspective helps bring a high level of focus. Again, because we're vertically integrated, we have a construction division, so that's really beneficial for our team.
We have an awesome new studio, and now we're doing this live on the
Yeah.
internet, and this is one of our live ones. We have kind of shifted to in studio, so can't wait to have you actually in person.
Love that.
I think one of the things as you talked about is like family. So I'm actually right now I need to go see my kiddos. But I appreciate you joining us. But one of the things I think that is so important, especially in times like right now, of change. We build these businesses focused on long-term consistency. Sometimes looking 5, 10. I talked to someone yesterday who has a 40-year vision for their investment thesis. So unique, right? And I'd like to get your thoughts, in times of uncertainty or radical change that you can't control, how do you stay so consistent? How do you stay level-minded and remind yourself and your teams that this too will pass, whether it's great or it's tough, but that this too will pass? I'd love to kind of get your advice and your thoughts.
One of the things that I learned early in my career was this concept of control the controllables. The idea of you can only control what's in your control. And did Chris have to hop off? Bye, Chris. So you can only control what's in your direct control. And again, same concept really as the let them theory, but a different approach to it. Focusing on what's within your control, growing and scaling, like, okay, this thing happened. What can I do about it? That's really what you can focus on. If it's outside of your control, it's not worth your brain space.
Stephanie, when you're thinking about legacy, big picture, right? Let's just say when it's all said and done for you, how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered for my heart and my heart-based leadership. I care about our team so much and the people that I work with. the work that I do in legislation is because I care. The work that I do with RETSI is because I care. I'm really passionate about helping others. And I think that our industry has this unique perspective because we're housing people and we touch so many people's lives. So I'd really like to be remembered for that culture of care long term.
When it comes to the road you've taken and others looking up to someone like you, people that you inspire on a daily basis, what are some pieces of advice that you have for those that are looking up to you and want to become Stephanie one day, like Stephanie?
Do it scared. Do it scared every single time, because honestly, people see the outside. They don't see that, like I was crying in the corner. It's difficult to have those moments and go through change. I mean, Adrian, you and I actually met when we were in Phoenix, and I was hiding in a back closet doing some meetings. And we're like, can we just be quiet together? Because it can be really a lot day in and day out. There's a lot of competing priorities. But again, focusing on controlling the controllables. You can only control what you can control. Showing up is what you can control. You can't control what other people are going to think of you. You can't control what other people are going to say about you, but you can set your expectations and hold yourself in a way that you have a reputation, and hopefully that's a positive reputation.
If you were to give a piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, maybe avoid a hardship, to avoid a situation you wish you knew when you were 20 and you had to learn the hard way, what would that be?
I have to say I wouldn't change a thing because I wouldn't be where I am today, but I would have liked to have developed a thicker skin earlier. I think that I really cared a lot about what other people thought of me or how I was being perceived, or do they like me? And ultimately it's not about that, and really taking the personal out of it. I have an executive coach that I work with that also continues to encourage me to think differently and to make myself a priority, because ultimately by taking care of myself, I'm taking care of others. It's very easy to get stuck in the day to day and then realize, like, oh crap, it's 3 p.m. and I've only had coffee today. Like, that's not me at my highest and best self. What does that look like? It's a prepared morning. It's thinking through these things, and really taking the time to take care of yourself, I think is really critical. Easier said than done, but my biggest piece of advice would be for people to, whatever it is that they think that they want to do, scrape the money together, show up to those conferences, buy those plane tickets, get the hotel room, and show up. And when you're there, things can happen. But showing up is the battle.
Get in those rooms. I love it.
Yes.
Technology. Up until very recent, I had to say that my concern was, especially on the maintenance side, how are we going to deal with, hundreds of thousands of, you know, open positions to fill, especially that we're looking at the Gen Xers slowly exiting our industry because of their age, right? Either retiring or getting into jobs that are like less physically demanding. And then we also at the same time are losing on a daily basis incredible levels of legacy knowledge. What is that knowledge gonna be? How is that gonna be replicated? How do we get newer generations? And then a couple of weeks ago, something did happen. I read an article that mentioned a company from Israel that built this robot that is being like purchased by a company in New York. This robot does drywall, installs drywall at a rate of 1,500 square foot per hour. So with that context in mind, if that robot can do like 1,500 square foot an hour today, imagine that robot, like, how much better is gonna be a year from now or 5 years from now. Probably in no time at all, we would not have driver installers anymore, or maybe we will have just a handful of people that will, like manage the robot to make sure that it has everything that needs to just function. Now, I don't think that that's kind of like a unique isolated situation. I think that all of the jobs, like every single job, is going to be prone to be challenged by a automation, by a robot, by some artificial intelligence that could do at least part of it, right? So with that being said, with that picture in mind, I'd like to get your take on how would you see the work done by humans 3 to 5 years from now?
I think that, first of all, that robot would be way more valuable if it could do trim work in addition to drywall work, because we all know that that's where the money comes in. So if they can get that robot to do trim work, that'd be fantastic.
Probably that'll be phase two, or probably that's already happening. Maybe there's like a
Implementation recommendation.
there's like a sibling of that robot that does that.
Yeah. So I think that there's no replacing, again, that connection that humans have with one another. What I think is important is for companies and people to think about what they should be delegating to AI or to workflow automations or to technology. One of the things a few years ago that NAA had the gentleman from Dirty Jobs come in and speak with us at NAA. His name's Mike. I can't think of his last name.
Mike Rowe.
Yes. He came in and spoke. And I think having that experience really changed my perspective of how we think about skilled trades. And I hope that concept continues, because skilled trades are so valuable. Think about this. Who's showing up to do your repair? Let's say you have an emergency, no heat. You want somebody who's showing up with a smile and, is able to communicate what's going on. Fine if you have robot repairing things, but ultimately there's still humans behind this. We're still housing humans. And so I think going through use cases and making sure that the technology is really going to be beneficial is what's the most important. Finding ways to encourage people to think differently about career paths are really important. I know one of the things in Central Ohio is they look at the Intel factory and the continued work in the Columbus market specifically is how education is changing, because it really starts at the education level. And how do we encourage, having people who are in those roles? And it's really celebrating. It's not just about doctors, lawyers. I mean, we should be celebrating our plumbers. We should be celebrating our electricians. These are things that we need as an industry and as humans. So it's part of our infrastructure. And so really celebrating that and lifting up people who choose that career path, I think, is really important.
I'm really glad you're bringing this up. I'm actually working on a project. We already done like the first few episodes of a series.
Yeah.
The project is meant to put a spotlight on the amazing people that we have in maintenance, our amazing service people. It's gonna be a docu-series, so I'm super excited to share that. We're about to launch. Probably we're like about a week out from launching the first episode. We already we already filmed a few episodes, so I hope that will give our fellow maintenance professionals the credit that they deserve, and also inspire others to follow their footsteps, including the younger generations that probably don't even know that there is such a thing as a industry called multifamily.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
Stephanie, it's been quite amazing to have you here today. Thank you so much for being with us. What are some final thoughts for our audience?
Final thoughts would be to continue to develop out technology in support of residents and employees as the focus, and to continue to develop multifamily and advocate for our industry as a whole, and help keep real estate and technology as a force for good at the forefront.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring. And I want to thank our friends from BetterBot for making this episode possible. Have an amazing afternoon, all. And I hope to see you back here soon. Take care.
Thank you.